Oh yes. Greetings everybody. Good morning if you're in the southern hemisphere, um, or if you're in South Africa. Yeah. Good morning and hi everybody. To my new returning listeners, much love, man. Thanks to everybody. In the previous episode, we finally clocked 500 hours of viewing on YouTube. So that's massive for me. That was actually my first goal. We're setting up the YouTube channel. So it only took I think 2 years to get that. So thank you. I really appreciate everybody who tuned into this channel. And if you're new, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Yeah, just before we get into Nolan, remember I'm working with Mustafa Junadu on Global Sports, and Junadu talks football and political animals. We're actually recording a bit later today. So look forward to that, man. Those channels are all on YouTube. There's some really exciting stuff there. In particular, the political animals, since that politics is always a sensitive topic, and it's always a passionate topic, regardless of where you are in the world. Like people, I guess that's really testament to the crazy world we're staying in. So yeah, please check that out, man. And yeah. I also have a what do they call it? A playlist on my channel as well of all the various episodes. So check that out too. So big up Mustafa, and also I still have the African Genius with Alsal Kebalan. That playlist and that podcast is on the channel too. So look out for that too. So yeah, thanks everybody. So we inviting today. We have an old guest. Not an old guest, but an old friend. Nolan Stevens, as you can tell, he's standing behind a lovely artwork. We're going to talk about Concrete Cocoon by Sifiso Mkhabela. It's a solo exhibition by the Asisebenze Art Studio. So we're going to get into everything. We had a similar recording to this last year, and I thought that was pretty successful. So yeah, so Nolan Stevens, firstly, my brother, good morning. How are you? And welcome.
Thanks, homie. I'm very well, thanks. Thanks again for having us on your show again. Last time around, we were in Santon, Sanlam's headquarters, doing a exhibition. This time around, it's a solo by Sifo Mkhabela. And as you so rightly said, it's called Concrete Cocoon. I am the curator of this. Today, we are at our art studios, Asisebenze. And this is part of a series of exhibitions called Deconstructed Series. And the aim of the series is to deconstruct the artist's practice to its most elemental level. So, for example, if your most simplest form of art was speaking about child abuse, but now you're speaking about feminism, we're going to try and figure out the connecting threads that connect all of those, and break down
That's very cool.
How all of that connects. And the reason why the series came about is because there's been some confusion, at least within the studio and amongst the surrounding arts scene in Jersey, about the difference between contemporary art and modern art, right? So both terms mean art of the now, right? But contemporary art is far more different than just art of the now. There's like new materials, new mediums, political subject matter, subjects that relate to today, all that kind of stuff. So the aim of the series of exhibitions is try to get at least the artists in this studio space to engage with contemporary art in their practices. And the first person we're dealing with this month, well, weirdly enough, is going to run over to next month because of popular demand.
That's good.
Is Sisfiso Mkhabela. So next month we'll be having him again, just with a different lineup of events. More about that later. So Concrete Cocoon is about his interaction with the city of Joburg, because we are right in the mix of Joburg. Right next to us is a deconstructed Bree Street, which blew up not too long ago.
Yeah, last year. Yeah.
And on the other side of us, and on the other side of us is a taxi rank. So right next to Park Station, so you can imagine the hustle and bustle if you still remember your Jersey life there, Wesley. So his exhibition, throwing some shade. So his exhibition is about his experiences in the city of Joburg, and what that is like, how that's affected him since being here.
Okay, man.
So it deals with
Okay, Nolan.
Sorry,
before we get into the whole show, let's take a step back, man. Just a few things. Just first for the listeners, just explain to a little bit for those that didn't catch the first episode, or rather the first recording with you last year. Just explain just a little bit about Asisebenze Art Atelier. So I mean, like you said, it's an art of the city. But like the other artists, how the other studio operates, and who are the
Yeah.
other artists who's in residence.
Okay. So we have 25 artists in the space. The space we're in currently, if I can just flip my camera, give me 1 second. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So it's just gone blank. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there, but the camera's not flipped yet.
Yeah, the screen's gone blank. So
there we go.
Just flip this around. Yeah. Oh,
well, it went back to your thingy. So there we go. Like that. Yeah, so there we go. 100%.
This first level is a gallery, right? And it's a double barrel gallery, which means there are two sections to it. This is the the east one, and that over there is the west gallery, right?
Okay.
Up those stairs, if you can see them, those stairs lead to a floor of studios, which are 2 levels high, so 2 floors of studios. Through that door is 6 floors of studios. So it's 2 buildings together that are studio spaces where the artists both live and work in the studios. And yeah, as I said, we've got 25 artists. Most of them have either gone to Artist Crew Studio or are self-taught artists, right? We have a few who are from the UP section in Pretoria.
Okay.
University of Pretoria. But most are self-taught or printmakers,
Yeah.
And yes, so the engagement with the studio and how it works differently to other spaces is that we don't only work with a rental system, like you pay rent as you would at
really?
And you get a studio space. We don't only work like that. We work with an art exchange system. So the artists exchange art, and now they'll be going into a 50-50 format where it's art exchange as well as rental exchange to pay for their studio spaces. And as you can imagine, for artists who really struggle to make a buck, this is very helpful for Josie artists,
It is.
So that is how they're able to pull up our spaces.
Nolan, that's actually revolution. That let's just take a step back. Just explain to us so how does that work? Because from personal experience, having to pay studio space, studio rent and rent where you stay is actually a nightmare, and it actually we can get how bad that is. So the artist needs to donate or give the studio one artwork a month. So who values it, and how does the studio make money off that? Because at the end of the day, rent needs to be paid.
Yeah. As you can imagine, it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
We've been doing this for 3 years of a very, very young space. So say, for example, this piece right here, right, is sold for 45,000 rand. And you've got a record to say that you've created works like this size, and you have exhibited and sold these kinds of works at galleries for 45,000 rand. Because any artist can come around and say my A0s are worth $1 million.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
But unless you have a track record of that, that is how we then determine the pricing of that. And if you have a studio that is worth, let's say, 15 grand, you can now give amounts of artworks to pay that off, as well as money to pay that off. So that's how it would work. You would give us an artwork, we will then assess whether or not we think this is your best artwork right now, because our aim is then to try and sell this, right?
Yeah, of course.
Make a buck out of it, right? And then, because as you can imagine, most artists would be like, yo, let me just give in some really crappy works.
Exactly.
And hopefully I can get rent for it, So it is still a shift around and trying to figure out how to do this best kind of situation right now. But, just
a few points on that. I think that is really dope, man. I think that is shit, man. I wish you guys did that a few years back. That's fantastic. It also got a big socialist vibe to it, but we don't want to make this political, at least not now. but like I love it. I love it. So okay, so the artists work and stay there. You say you've got like a few floors. We're talking to Sifisos about his work now. So just the last question on the on the studio. So in terms of management, curatorship, you one of the curators, and I know you work with the artist. Who's the what other partners are associated with the studio and so forth?
With the studio space. Okay. So in terms of the studio, I'm the curator. And as you know, I'm also an arts writer. So I'm the writer for the space. I help the artists write the artist statements. I come up with the conceptualization of the exhibitions. And if they're trying to apply for residencies and stuff like that, that's when I come on board. The only other person who works with me is a lady by the name of Ashley, very young lady, and she is the building manager of the space. So kind of like a caretaker of a building.
Yeah.
She deals with like the rental stuff and my toilet isn't working or my sink is blocked and all that kind of stuff. So she does. I am also the only person in the entire team who has any kind of art education or art knowledge. So my job is to also try and educate my team as well as the artists. As much as I can.
No, I think I'll have this conversation with you privately. I remember you talking about the whole you working as a art coach. I think I need some coaching, but I will holler at you with that, privately. But man, let's jump into the show. So Sifiso works and I'm working stays in the studio. So tell us a little bit about the artist. Where's he from and so on and so forth.
I'm just gonna flip my camera. Sifiso comes from a very not very. He didn't come out of that space and say, "I want to become an artist." He, however, did realize there's no space for him to be an artist in this rural environment. So he came over to Jozi. He then studied in Pretoria. Took up sculpture. So he's mostly a sculptor, which is why his works look so three-dimensional and not so flat, right? And then since went through a huge different variety of spaces where he lived in. He at some point had spaces in Maboneng in the mode section. They had like studios underground mode. Designed in Maboneng. He has had a long stint as a sculptor, exhibiting both in Cape Town, making public art in Cape Town, as well as in Johannesburg. He has also lost the studio and lost all his tools thanks to COVID, right? So his interaction with the city of Joburg has been both love and hate, which is how this exhibition came to be. Because when we were having our conversations, he would mention these things, and I'd be like, I really like dealing with Joburg, so let's figure out a way of making this into an exhibition. So that's how that initially came into be. So that's why the title is also called Concrete Cocoon, because he sees this space, Joburg, as a space, as this place that when you get into it, you're not left the same, right? You are forever changed when you come into Joburg. But the thing with Sifiso is, no matter how hard his life gets or the situation gets, he always has a positive outlook to it. And that's also where this cocoon thing comes in, because the whole butterfly coming out, new light, kind of perspective. That's how that title came about. That's kind of Sifiso in a nutshell, right? But if you'd like, you can kind of go into the artworks.
Let's jump into that. Let's jump into that. So there's let's start off with with that piece. That's exactly the piece I want to start off with. Explain to us the medium and what it's about, and take it from there.
Okay, so this is the piece that we used on our invite. It is also one of the more layered pieces, that actually engage with pretty much all the topics in this exhibition. So he uses a lot of. I'm just going to go in closer, so tight.
Please do.
There's a lot of rubber tubing, which is from tires. So all of these kind of black things that you see here are from tire tubing, right?
Okay.
And he uses a lot of that in his artwork. Show you the rest of it. Just zoom to the face maybe. And the reason for that is he's dealing with this idea of movement and mobility and transportation. You know, this idea that Joburg is not stagnant. It's
everything
as
is
well as
constantly
his
moving.
movement from the rural environment to the urban to the city.
Yeah.
If you look at the effects that he has at the top here, right? Behind the figure, as well as the amount of land that are behind this figure, right? That relates to rural environments where you would segment your plot from somebody else's plot, right? Your farmland from someone else's plot, right? And in Cassie lingo, that's kind of called stop nonsense, right? I'm sure there's a few chuckles in the audience right now because that's a very, very lingo term, you know. And so he's using that as an aesthetic there to talk about the division of land. And what he's also speaking about here is the heritage and the historics of land, right? So, for example, our forefathers, our fathers and grandfathers would have rural farmlands and then be coaxed to come to the urban environment to mine, right? So as a child, you don't really know what that's all about. And you see him going off to this other place as my father is going to his land now. So this piece is called My Father's Land, right? So it's like my father's going off to his land, and his land would be the urban environment of the city to make gold. But what he's doing by doing that is he's leaving his actual land. As you can see, the figure's looking away from the rural environment. Right? And he's looking out towards something else, which would be like the gold and the mines of Jersey. Right? And he's going to find wealth somewhere else. But he's forgetting that the wealth he has is something is not going to be his any longer. Because what actually happened to a lot of people is as soon as indigenous people left their land, the then apartheid government rushed in and then took up that land, right, forcefully, right? So it was a swapping of one set of gold for another set of gold, right? Because the apartheid government and all colonialist powers knew that land was the actual source of wealth, right? So, which is why we have land issues and stuff like that happening today. Right. So we have this kind of dynamic going on, the swapping of land and us being duped for our land, right? Another part of this that we have is a spiritual element. It's a very big element in Sifiso's work, right? It speaks very much about spirituality. And for Black people, there's this idea of the ancestry and what our ancestors are going to do. So if you can imagine, our age group right now are trying to get the land back, right? So we're trying to get our grandfather's land back, try and buy those parts of land back, right? But then you discover that there's shallow graves all over the land. So now what are the complexities of that in terms of ancestry? Whose ancestors are that? Can you really be on a land where your ancestors are not resting? You know, what does that say to be in a space where there's wandering spirits? You know, so all these kind of complexities start coming out of the book. You know, things that people don't often speak about, you know. And in our conversations prior to the exhibition, we started like putting these ideas to the fore. You know, like, okay, let's speak about spirituality. Let's speak more about this land stuff. Let's speak about belonging. Because this piece in itself deals with all of that, as well as the entirety of this exhibition. But this piece just happens to be encapsulating most of the things in the show, right? But it speaks of all of these kinds of issues in it. And just a little mark I want to put into a technical thing. If you look at how Sfiso actually, can you see how he's put his the tubing down? He kind of like staples it down. Right. And that also looks like the way streets in Jersey look, because our streets are very grid-like.
Oh, yes. I see the association.
So it's the whole idea of trying to get that grid-like sense too, and feel like you are wearing the city is constantly shrouding over you, right? this idea of the city is constantly bound to us as Joburg because we can't shrug it off, right? So that's
just a few points.
okay.
Just some observation. Just first for my listeners. So I mean, guys, as you can see, there's a glass sheet over it. So there's a bit of reflection, especially in the bottom left corner. But with that aside, I totally get what you're saying when he says he's got a background in sculpture because the figure looks almost like a wire sculpture from afar, and I love that drape over the left shoulder. I
Yeah.
think technically that is seriously on point. You can actually look and feel, see, the waves in the cloth, and that's beautifully juxtaposed against the background. I totally get what you're saying with the staples. I think that's also a very interesting visual element over there. From afar, I guess if you squint your eyes long enough, you could actually see some form of movement over there, and I think that's very beautiful. It sort of draws you in. Yeah, man, no, I love it. I love it. Also the right shoulder of the figure, I think that's also very well formed. So I totally get what you're saying with his background in three-dimensional work. So it's very beautiful. Actually, the detail on the face also looks pretty cool. You can actually see a little bit of personality there. I think that's really nice. So
Yeah.
fantastic, man.
Yeah. Nice one. Nice one.
Nolan,
So this,
sorry, my brother. Just one technical thing. If you're saying that he's using staples, so I would assume that's a staple gun. So does he fold the staples at the back of the paper?
yeah, I think he does. He also uses a lot of brown paper elements in it.
Yes,
So as you can see, it's not just one flat layer with another flat layer on it.
yes.
There's like maybe 3 or 4 layers of elements
Oh,
on it,
okay,
right?
okay,
So I'm
okay.
guessing he's folding and stapling and folding
Yes,
and
yes,
stapling,
yes, yes.
constantly working over, which is again that sculptural element of working that
Well, that's
comes to the
very
forefront.
labor intensive, man, and I think it comes through, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then
lovely.
we
Yeah,
just
yeah,
shift
yeah.
our
Yeah,
attention
let's
to a
move on.
different body of work, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, let's move.
So
Let's go.
this diptych, I'm just going to stand away from it, and I'm
Yes.
assuming that diptych right there deals with almost like constructors of the urban environment. So we have Jonathan Lieberman, who's the constructor
Oh,
of
Maboneng. Yeah,
Maboneng, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just can't remember who the architect here is, but it's an architect who's been very instrumental in the construction of Johannesburg buildings and art spaces like Newtown and Bloemfontein. I just cannot remember what his name is right now for the life of me. But these works right here are a bit different to that work that we spoke of right now, because this
Okay.
was actually constructed on a poster. And if you actually look, I'm going to try and see if I can't. These are grooves that is dug into the poster, right? Kind of
Okay,
like if you
posters.
think of a
So,
print
hold on,
and
hold on,
how you
hold on,
would
hold on, hold on.
groove and dig into a
Let's
line of
just
that.
what type of poster? Because I get a look and feel that looks like a masonite board.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it actually kind of was, and then he dug out the top layer of the image of the poster,
Okay.
and then just worked with because this is not board. It's kind of like a rubbery kind of substance,
Ah,
right? I don't really know
okay,
what it is. And then he dug into it. So I'm just trying to see if I can't show you the actual grooves of this, trying to get through the
okay.
functionality of it. But it's not coming across at the camera. I'm not sure if you can see the.
No, not really,
I
but
think it
I get
might be
what you're saying,
more.
though. I get
Not
what you're
really.
saying, though.
So this one has a clearer face, I think, in it. Not sure if
Yes,
you can
yes,
see it.
yes.
Yeah, the eyes right there. So they both have faces in them. This has a body in it, right? And these were meant to be hung in the middle of the room because they are double-sided images. So the back
Okay,
of them are images of children, right? But that became a bit too intensive to do. These are supposed to be the people who construct the spaces that we live in, as I said, Jonathan Lieberman,
yes.
Maboneng, right? And it's those people who not only is it a comment on how the city is created, but it's a comment on who creates the cities that we live in, right? And as you can see, both of these individuals are of Western descent, if I can put it that way, maybe
Yeah,
BC,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And, and it then speaks about generational wealth, right?
yeah.
Because this guy's forefathers, his father and his grandfather would have been in property. And then he got
Yeah,
into
yeah.
property and
Even when
decided
it's
he
got
wanted
a
to do
yeah,
um, art spaces too, right? So it then becomes this whole bit of land issues again relating to that piece again, speaking
I
about a
love
different
that.
aspect of land,
Yeah,
land issues, who has the rights to the land, who creates the land, all that kind of
who
stuff, which is
owns the
also a reason
land?
why he digs into this, who owns the land. It's also a reason why he digs into these works, because he could have made this work look like that work and it would have made a lot more sense. It's like it all ties together, one
Yeah,
artist can't shoot the guy for that. It makes sense. But these look vastly different to that piece because it ties in with the theme of this. He's talking about architects and people who dig into the land and construct the land.
for sure,
Like it's usually called breaking ground. Right?
for
So he's
sure.
literally breaking into this piece and digging into it, grooving it out to get the image out. So it relates to all of those kind of subject matters. Right? So again, Sfiso very open to constructive criticism, very open to suggestions, which is a rarity, particularly in the art space, as you can imagine, because most artists don't like to be told or don't like to have suggestions made on how their art should be or possibly move to. As you can imagine, change is never an easy thing to accept, right?
Never.
And Spicer went from being a three-dimensional artist to find two-dimensional works. And these works, even though they are two-dimensional, have a very three-dimensional feel to them.
They do, they do, they do. You also get a real sense of
Right?
his understanding of
So
volume.
that is,
Yeah, yeah. You get a real sense that he understands shape and form and he knows how to work with it very well because even from afar you can totally see what is going on there. It's actually quite beautiful, and the fact that it's only black and white. There's a lot of variation in tone and
yeah,
stuff. It's great. It's great. And I think the size of it also. I mean, I'm sure like you stand in front of it, it looks even more daunting. Um, I think it's more
yeah,
impactful on a bigger scale um, as a as a as a smaller one. Yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
I hear you. Nolan, just a quick question on a this is just for viewers who's maybe not 100% familiar with everything. Why is the one wall painted in yellow and the other one in a light gray?
That was us just trying to have a funkier space. So often do we go into spaces, particularly gallery spaces, where everything's just white, right?
Yeah,
And as you know, I've been in the arts for many, many years, right?
yeah,
So I've seen art galleries that not only in Johannesburg or South Africa, where the walls are different colors. I mean, even if you go to Mocha, their walls are
mm,
different colors, and color it gives a more vibrant feel. Like even if you look at the rest of the gallery, you'll see blues. Like I'm not sure if you can see that wall over there
yeah. You can.
or the pillars around here. You'll see blues, you'll see oranges. It's just to give a more vibrant sensation to the space. Because we want people who walk in, regardless of how the art looks, to
Yeah,
feel like this is an artistic space.
yeah.
So that was the thinking behind the colorization of the walls and the space itself.
It actually leads me to another point. I think that's for a separate episode. Really, is how art exhibitions in post COVID is we live in a very visual society, and you need to when somebody art galleries has a real it's maybe not always for everybody. Sometimes even the air conditioning is a bit too cold, and it can look a bit daunting. So something but more colorful also looks more friendly. It also looks more approachable, and I think that comes through
Mm,
even those the purple and the orange pipes on the right there.
yeah.
But let's look at that triptych over there. What's going on there?
Okay, so this is a continuation. This triptych is a continuation of that diptych that we've just seen. And it deals with, again, the city. This section right here deals with architecture specifically, and the way the architecture of the city is more inspired by Western aesthetics than African aesthetics, right? We've got Greek pillars, we've got Roman reliefs, we've got Dutch aesthetics on our roofs, you know. It's a very Western space, and a constant reminder that the space has been constructed for people who do not inhabit it right now, right? Black people were not in mind when the space was constructed, right? And the idea behind this is, how does it feel knowing that the space you live, work, and play in was never meant for you, right?
Sure.
I presented this idea to Sifiso, right? And he then came up with these works where he has these constructions of figures, and then the actual figure in the middle is done to look like your classical art, like your Davids or your Mona Lisas.
I get that. I get that feel. Yeah, comes through.
Then with the arches and the kind of Western elements that we see in our architecture, how does it make us feel knowing that these spaces were actually not created for us? You know, so he created this triptych of works in order to kind of illustrate that idea that we are. Before we spoke about the concept of Africa Light, you know, South Africa being the space that is Africa Light, you know, how does it feel for us to live in an African city and an African country that doesn't really express its Africanness, you know, where Westernization is pushed to the fore? You know, how does that affect us psychologically, mentally, financially, emotionally, all those kinds of things?
I love that.
So these three works came out from that discussion that we had about that.
Lovely,
again,
man.
A lot of the conversations I have with the artists is just. Sorry, I was just going to say, a lot of the conversations that I have with the artists is giving them ideas they might not have been exposed to before, like the fact that the city wasn't created for us, you know. Then see what happens when they engage with ideas like that. Yeah. So this is testament to what he came up with once I presented that idea to him.
Okay, man. So
you were going to say something?
Yeah, man. That's actually really cool, man. And I'm thinking that's actually an episode on its own. Yeah, man. Sort of. How does that work? So how do you? But okay, I'll just give you my views on it, and we can talk about this in the future, because I think this is super interesting. Is that how do you like sort of engage with the artists, their processes, their technique, and how do you assess like, okay, you must go in this direction or that direction? Because this triptych over here, I get what you're saying with those sort of that Western influence that comes through, especially in the first two pieces, and I think the third one, you know, personally, I think I really love that shape there. When you say the city is not designed for us, I mean, we know that. And I think the city is also designed to keep you frustrated. And that figure in the center there also looks kind of distorted, a bit abstract. I think that's a very beautiful association and metaphor. And the one in the center almost looks Romanesque, or is it Greek? Well, to me, sometimes they're just the same thing. But that's lovely. So those are also rubber tubing, like he used in that piece, in the first piece.
Yeah, and then he uses brown paper behind it.
Yeah,
so
I can
the brown
tell.
you see, brown paper that is used behind it here.
Yeah,
which is not just done for the fact that it's cheap material, but it's also conceptually chosen, right? He has this whole commentary on how what is the gold of today as opposed to the gold of yesteryear, right?
Yeah.
And how the city has people who, you know, like you get these people who pick up trash and stuff. Right? Trash is almost seen as the new gold of today. You know, so people who pick up paper and try and recycle that is the new gold of today.
That's actually quite.
We are left with gold dust instead of gold.
That's actually quite a
harsh
metaphor. that like picking up trash is a new goal.
Yeah.
I think one can
Yeah.
expand. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can run with that, and I can actually relate. I know with glass bottles as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually got a great metaphor. But Nolan, there's a technical thing here.
Mhm.
Let's sort of wrap up this session over here,
Okay.
and then we can expand. I'd like to talk further about the other artworks, and also
Okay.
like moving forward, because I really get a very cool sense of, or rather, the light coming in sort of from the left of the studio is lovely. It actually feels warm and welcoming. Yeah, man, that light coming it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It almost, yeah, it looks and feels refreshing, and we can sort of
Mhm.
expand on, moving forward who the other artists are, and maybe look at a few more artworks. So I'm just gonna close this session, and we'll start another one. All right.
Okay. Okay. All right.
All right, cool, my brother. I'll chat to you now. Hey everybody. Yeah, man. Guys, if you get any value from this channel, please remember to smash that like and subscribe button. I had to just make mention of that. Nolan, so oops, press the wrong button. Let's jump into the yeah. Let's have a look at this piece over here, and
Okay.
there's actually two things I want to pick your brain about, but let's first have a look at the artwork, and we'll get there afterwards. Okay, just before we go on, to the left over there, there's those green organic shapes. Is that part of the show, or is that just an aesthetic?
Uh, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is actually not part of the show. This is an photo booth installation. It's made to look like a taxi. That's
It
been done
does
by
kind of.
different artists. Also on social media, people would kind of come in and sit down here. And if you look at our social media on Instagram, you'll see a whole lot of images and
Fucking
reels
cool,
of
man.
people who come through and sit in the booth. It's just an
Uh,
installation that we wanted to
let's actually, let's
make the space
actually.
a bit funky.
I'd like to talk to something related to that, but we can get there a bit later because that's actually, relates to a point I
Okay.
want to make. But let's look at the one in the center over there, one with the two hands and the eyes. So
Okay.
explain to us what's going
So
on.
as you can see, this work is a bit more ghoulish and darker than the
It
rest,
definitely looks
right?
darker for sure.
And
It
it
looks
deals
more morbid.
with,
Yeah.
yeah, it deals with like the fears of the city, right?
Uh,
The fears of people not wanting to come into the city, not wanting to stop streets,
uh, uh,
the
uh,
fear of the dark, the unknown of what they see and what they don't see. That's why there's like those hands and this eye peering out, right? Because it's
uh,
this fear of the unknown. Like even when we had people coming for our VIP opening night, um, the former mayor who had invited through Port Salatse,
yeah.
um, she had actually called, she turned back and she was like, I don't think I feel safe in the space. Right.
That's
And I had to
that's
coax her to
something I
come
want to.
back to Joburg. Yeah.
That is such a poignant point, man. One of the drawbacks of these studios in the inner city is exactly that. I mean, personally,
Mhm.
it affected me in years past, where I really struggled to do a show after 6 because then the money people, the poor people just wouldn't pitch. So basically, if you do a show
Yeah.
after 6, it's basically just a party for you and your friends. But anyway, we'll
Yeah.
get back to that point. So this is the same medium. I can tell the rubber tubing again, and
Yes. Yes.
okay.
So just
So
to finish up that story, because I think if I leave it that way, I am giving her a disservice. She eventually
okay,
did pitch, and the red sticker on that work right there belongs to her. So yeah, not only did she pitch, but she showed
but
interest in the
she
work.
but she pitched
It's great.
with a wallet as well.
Yes. Which is always good. It's like, yeah, come on, and play with us, poor
That's what's
artists.
up, man. Actually, let me just run with this because I don't want it to sort of get lost in translation. So this is the point I want to make. Like, are you guys looking at alternative ways of doing the show? Because I mean, the show was beautiful, you know. Um, but there is the other part of like, it's still a traditional show of having people to physically get into their cars, put petrol in the cars, drive through. Then you have to get parking, and make sure your car is safe. You got to walk up a flight of stairs or take a lift or whatever. So, are you guys looking? And I'm talking about the Asisebenze studio in general. Are you guys exploring alternative ways, like doing other shows
Like
digitally, for
virtual
example?
exhibition.
Yeah.
Really, to be honest, we haven't even engaged with that topic yet.
That's
What
interesting.
we are doing in terms of finding other spaces, which is weird, right? You think that would be the first thing we would do, being in the
Yeah.
inner city, right? And
Yeah.
have issues with coming to having audiences come in. How we're actually engaging with that issue or that challenge, I don't want to say problem, is by partnering with galleries in the north, where the northern money is. So galleries like Artillery Gallery, for example, which is at Madiba Square, Nelson Mandela
Yeah.
Square.
Yeah.
We actually we are part of a group exhibition which is on right now with them. We have an artist actually showing, I think tonight, or maybe it was last night, the opening at Everard Reed. So we are definitely active in pushing our artists out into the more moneyed, if we can use it that way, gallery spaces, So that is an active thing that we are doing. But to be honest, we haven't looked enough
I would
into the
actually like
virtual
to.
space.
I'd actually like to talk to you separately on that issue, because again, I think that's a full-on episode, because there's many things to unpack there. But not to do Sifiso disservice to the show, can we look at another artwork? Yeah. Those ones over there caught my eye. Just stop there for 1 second. No. Can you just go back a bit?
Oh,
yeah. Those there. Those. Yeah. Yes. What's going on? What's going on there?
So these deal with like very many different aspects of his life and urban life, So whether it is the idea of the infidelity that happens in the city, of having multiple girlfriends and, that kind of thing, or it's the idea of not taking religion as seriously as you would if you were in a rural environment, or it's the idea of forsaking culture, because you're in an urban space right now.
Yeah.
All of these deal with the complexities of living in an urban environment in a Western cityscape,
Is there a reason why Is there a reason why they are sort of bent like around the pillar? Is there a reason for that?
I think he was just playing with. So they're not really. This is a wall, right? And they're kind of hollow inside. If I can show you.
Okay.
So he was playing with this idea of form and structure. Because as you can imagine, for a sculptor, working constantly flat, it can be a bit boring, right? So he's playing with how he can find excitement in a flat form, So
That's
these were him just having fun with the flatness of form, I guess. Yeah. And also showing the multifacetedness of. Sorry, you're gonna say?
Is it a diptych as well?
It's actually 4 pieces. So they're all separate pieces. We have just arranged them in this way. So it's 1,
yes.
3, 4, right? 4 pieces.
Okay.
We've just arranged it in this way. Yeah.
Interesting. It almost from afar, it almost looks like street art. It looks like it could be on a somewhere in the street somewhere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, especially elements like that right there.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It definitely also gives it
like that.
I mean, those marks, they are beautiful, man. Yeah. This is the textures. They are lovely. It's interesting. It's interesting that you say that in the inner city you sort of abandon traditional beliefs and norms. I can relate. I think the nature of the environment. They say once in Rome, do as Romans. In the inner city, that harsh, fast environment, it does it it does take a toll on people's traditional beliefs, not always in a good way, but yeah, I totally get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. True. True.
So
All right.
just
Would you
another
like to?
question on just another question on the
Okay.
outside of the building. So I mean that's a balcony, right? So is that
Yeah. Yeah.
are
It's
you,
quite an
do you,
extensive balcony.
yeah, that looks nice, man. So do you guys do any events out there as
Usually
well?
we have when we do have events. Yeah. So when we have openings or open studios, we generally put like a whole lot of chairs outside. That becomes our bar area.
Yes,
That right there. Set up a
yes,
bar for that or food stalls and stuff like that.
yes,
And then the outside area would have like a whole lot of chairs. At the end of the year, the artists usually have like a braai or something,
yes,
you know. So yeah. But usually in the morning, cats just come out and have a smoke.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and have a coffee.
you
Yeah,
know.
lovely,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So
Let's carry on.
outside of us. Right. So
Yeah,
this piece right here um reflects how it's those people we don't see, right? Again, you see the city shrouding this feminine figure like a shawl, right? She's wearing the city again. In the way we
yes,
see the grid, the streets, like a
yes,
shawl,
yes,
right? Or
yes.
like
I
a
see that's
blanket.
consistent throughout the through
Yeah,
all the pieces. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So again, yeah, it's the people we don't see, whether these be the street cleaners or the night workers or
sure.
the street vendors, you know. We don't see these people. We don't see the sacrifices they go through. You
Yeah,
know, when you're a domestic, you have to live or work in a home instead of living and working in your home. You have to take care of
yeah,
children who are not your children,
yeah,
almost in spite of your children, you know. And
sure.
that creates like psychological trauma. We don't see the women who cook in the side of the streets for the people who inhabit the streets, right? Who go to work every morning, who might
Yeah,
cook fat cook and pap and fleis and all that kind of stuff. They do this for people in the city, but they're not doing this for the people at home, right?
they're doing it
We
for
don't see
themselves.
that. We don't see the sacrifices of the street cleaners who clean the streets, but barely have time to clean their homes.
Sure.
So he is paying homage to this. And we
I
see
sort of
this
like
in
it.
the colorization.
The
Yes,
shape
yes.
there almost has like a very pop. Pop culture likes this goddess type of esque a
Mhm.
figure in their work. With the halo and the crown. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's so it's interesting that you say he's actually talking to street workers, whereas it looks like a very dignified, a very powerful, a very all-being figure, as opposed to somebody who's
yeah,
just selling chips on the street. It's
yeah.
lovely.
I
Yeah,
mean, I guess this also questions our perception of these people, right? Who's to say these
yeah,
people
good.
aren't
Yeah,
dignified?
good point. Yes, yes,
Maybe they
yes,
are
yes. Good
the
point.
standards, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, who's to say these people aren't the goddesses of the city? I mean, even if we look at the colors that are used, right? These colors are often used in uniforms, whether of street cleaners or
ah,
domestic. So he's very, very, very specific in everything that he does. Very specific in everything that he does. It's not all happenstance. It's not all by chance. It's very
just
specific in
another
everything that he's.
just another technical observation, like the shape and form of that chair is lovely. It's very sculptural. It almost looks, it feels like it could be a wire sculpture of some sort. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Even the sort of pieces that's dangling at the bottom, um,
Mhm.
it almost kind of looks unfinished, unkept. But it looks very specific, which I think is also a very interesting metaphor for the city, because as much as it's sort of like I get a feel that it's sort of like everything in the city has its purpose, although it might not necessarily look that way. But it's sort of all part of a bigger picture, because they sort of run. It's lovely because they sort of run up and down. Yeah, very sculptural. Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely. Those marks on the figure, are those scoop? Yeah, yeah. It looks like he used a tool
Right.
to get. Yeah,
Yes, yeah. So initially, one of the ideas that we had when he was
Interesting.
constructing
Very, very,
this
very
was
interesting.
to actually pour concrete into this, so then it feels like it relates to the theme, the title of the exhibition, sorry, and it feels like this weight that this figure would constantly be carrying, you know.
Yeah.
So that was an idea that we were playing, which to
Lovely.
answer your question means that these are scooped out, so these are recessed.
Okay.
Just not sure how to show you that they're recessed, but they
No,
are
that's fine.
recessed.
That's fine. Even that angle over there, I sort of get a look at. I get a look at me. I sort of get a feel of it, almost like a masonite board, which is very
Yeah.
almost like a lino cut marks. It's lovely, and the face looks friendly. It doesn't look wretched. It doesn't look tired.
Yeah.
It looks friendly and approachable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Which like as
Awesome.
you explained, it's sort of giving paying homage to the guy. Like I think that's a very beautiful what's the word? Not dedication. A very the word is jumped by my mind now. It happens, but yeah,
It's cool.
I hear what you're saying. It's lovely. It's lovely. Yeah. But
Nice.
let's look at the other one.
Okay. Is perhaps, and you'll see a lot of works that look similar to this. In the other gallery, there's maybe 6 other pieces actually. And these
Okay.
were created when he first moved to Joburg, right? And they deal a lot with the isolation of that Joburg
Yeah, you
gives you.
definitely get
And you might think,
isolation.
how can there be isolation in Joburg when you're surrounded by like hordes of people, right?
But it's
But there
probably
is
the
an
loneliest
isolation
city in the
because,
world. It's definitely one of the loneliest
yeah,
cities.
nobody really looks at you. Everybody's seen as a threat,
Yeah.
So it's this idea of how do I exist in this space when I feel so alone? You know, how do I exist in this space when there's no peace of mind? As you can see, the head is like cutting
Yeah, the
off.
head is out with the
Right?
Basquiat crown.
Yeah. How do I exist in this space when there's no warmth? It's a very cold
Uh,
image. But at the same time,
uh,
it has these like song bits to the work where he's like trying to create work. And you have these woolen bits in the work where he's trying to find warmth in a very cold
yes,
city.
yes, yes.
So, yeah, this would be a relation to what his emotions were like when he first moved into the city.
Mm,
You
mm,
know.
mm, mm.
So,
No,
yep,
I
that
can
is.
relate to that piece as well in a major way. So, just another observation from having a look at all the pieces. It also is showing sort of like the different sides of the city. So the workers, the
Mhm.
conflict, the politics, the history.
Yes.
It also addresses
Yes.
land. I think that's incredibly layered. And as you say, the artwork itself is also quite layered. Um, I
Mhm.
think that's also a very that metaphor comes through. It comes through very very strong. So where you taking us now?
So now I'm just
Oh,
taking you into the second gallery where we have 6 of his works, right?
yes.
So this gallery space is reserved mostly for what we call rental works that we take in for rent, right? So here we've got 6 of Sfiso's works up. Sorry for the glare of the windows. We have pretty big windows in this space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's these 6 right here. And then we have the loose.
So that's
But yeah, so
interesting.
it's those.
So those are the works that is allowing him to stay at the space. So in
Yes.
terms of marketing the show, do you guys put preference on those works or I mean because the studio needs to make its money at the end of the day?
Actually, not. We put preference on the other works. Like yesterday, we started putting out boosted posts on Instagram of all his works. So we started with the black piece that you saw.
Yeah.
So we're putting preference on those works. If people buy these works, all the profit kind of comes to us as a studio space. But if people buy
Okay.
those works,
Yes, it goes
it
to
is
the
then
other.
shared because we've done the framing, the cost of putting
What
up the show, all
percentage
of that
does
kind of stuff.
the studio take off the artist? 40, 50,
Um,
30%,
for
35?
the 60-40 split, but I think it's been negotiated to 50-50. I stand to be corrected.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the rest of this
please.
space.
Please, thank you. Yeah.
About the rest of Sifiso's work. So this is the rest of the space. We've just got a sculptor who's moved in, and then the rest of the artists. And that is a Samson Mkhabela, because he at one stage
the late Samson Mkhabela.
passed on. Yeah. The late Samson Mkhabela, yes. So yes, that is our rental gallery. And these works right here is where the spirituality aspect of it comes into play, right? And I'll explain this to you. I'm going to find a work. So I'm just going to start with this piece right here, right?
Okay.
This whole body of work talks of his heritage, right? And his history as well as spirituality. So these two figures that are not sure if you can see them, but just have a lot of clear. These two figures right here are his grandfather and grandmother. Right? I'll try and do that again so you have a better idea. Grandfather and grandmother, right? His grandmother was from South Africa, from KZN. His grandfather was from Mozambique, right? And they fell in love, had a wild affair. It was amazing and romantic. But as soon as she got pregnant, the grandfather disappeared, right? And so he's now dealing with the whole idea of abandonment, not knowing who the other side of his family is, and he had to really this really came to the fore when his kid was born, and he had to started to do cultural practices like scarification, right? So if you look at the figures right there, you'll see all these markings, particularly on the legs, feet. I'm trying to make it so that you can see this, right? And that relates to the scarification practices that particularly Zulu people do when they get their cheeks cut, with razor blades.
Yeah.
And that is to create good luck, right? So it's a bleeding of negative luck, a bleeding of bad energies, allowing good luck to flow into you as well as your family and your ancestry. So that is when he got his first kid, that is when he had to start getting into this. And this was very late on in life. So he hadn't grown up with traditional and cultural practices before.
Sure.
Right? Sorry about the taxis in the city.
No. Don't stress that. Let's actually, Nolan, let's actually take just a step back because there's two questions I'd like you to answer, man, which I think is quite relevant. The first one is to do with marketing. So I asked you early on. And you guys said you haven't even addressed doing more virtual type of based shows, but you guys are sort of in partnership with the more heavy hitting galleries and sort of have an exchange. I definitely see the strategy there, and in theory it definitely sounds like a winning strategy. What other tools, what other marketing tools are you guys using to promote the artist and the gallery?
So I do a lot of social media stuff for the entire space. So our Instagram and our Facebook is what I hit a lot. We are no longer on Artsy just because of the pure cost of Artsy and having to pay
Artsy
dollars.
is expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah. So we use Instagram, Facebook, and our website right now. As
Artsy, did you guys make sales? Was it profitable being on there?
Not as much as we had hoped, to be honest. Not as much as we had hoped.
Yeah, I also think it was a bit
from the perspective. Yeah, from the perspective of the guy who owns this building, he's a property mogul, right? Like the Liebermans, he comes from a family of property moguls.
Yes.
So he's very capitalist in mindset.
Right? Yes.
For him, you need to see a return. The return is often double what you've put in, right? So if you put in 50 million, you want to see double of that.
Yes.
Right? And right now, he has not seen a return. And he's doing this basically out of the kindness of his heart, because you can imagine the pressure he's got from his investors.
That's a very That's a very interesting point. That's a very interesting point. That is another episode on its own as well, because as we know, I mean, the first thing that comes to top of mind is Horror Cafe. I mean, Horror Cafe in the early 2000s was the epicenter of performance art in Joburg, and it is a
Mhm.
physical building. The overheads and stuff eventually caught up to. So yeah, just to put into perspective, I'm always interested in asking. Always, I'm very interested in asking artists how they sort of deal with it. It's also for my business as well. So there's sort of a method in that madness. Another question, my brother, that I want to get your opinion on is AI. Are you guys in the studio concerned with what's happening with the boost of AI? Is it something that the artists are talking about?
It actually isn't. Sorry, excuse me. My phone is slipping out of my hand. Let me just adjust. It actually isn't a conversation that's happening right now.
That's interesting.
A mate of mine in a, I don't want to say competing space, but in August House Studios,
Yes,
Vivian Kohler is a very good artist in his own right.
yes, yes.
He's actually having a workshop on NFTs on the 25th. And I've seen that a lot of our artists are heading over to that. So whilst it might not be a
NFTs is
conversation I'm having with them,
pretty
it seems
expensive
like a
though.
conversation that, yeah, oh, okay.
It's a really expensive venture. At least that's from my yeah. But like
From your interaction. Yeah.
anyway. As I say, you're not
Yeah.
really. That's just something
No,
I.
we haven't really engaged with that a lot. So to be honest, if I'm not engaging with a topic specifically, for a variety of reasons, maybe I'm engaging with different topics or I'm completely swamped with something, I don't think it really filters into the artist very
Interesting.
fluidly or organically,
Uh,
so that becomes a bit of a challenge. Yeah. Yeah. Because they're
just
managing their own careers as well. Right? They're trying to get shows and, all that kind of thing and figure out where they stand as artists, pricing and all that stuff. So thinking about stuff like AI might be something that's seen as a periphery subject, not something
wow.
that's as important for them.
I actually
Yeah.
think it's pretty important, to be honest, and I think the thing is moving at
Yeah.
a pace that is second to none. But that's very interesting how you phrasing it, and it makes sense. You're looking at today. You need to eat today, this month. Thinking 3 months down the line. I know I'm speaking from personal experience here. At times, is a luxury that is not offered to many. So, if something seems too far, it does seem too far. But from my research and talking to many artists on this platform, it's a real big thing that needs to be addressed. It's interesting that Vivian is doing that thing on NFTs. That's also a very interesting topic
Um,
that I want to look to go into detail. But my brother, let's just wrap up this show. Are there any
okay. All right.
parting comments or things about the show that
Yes, I'd
you
just like
that
to
you still want to mention?
speak. So I just wanted to speak very briefly on the technical aspect of how these were created, right?
Please
And
go
then
for it.
speak
Go
about
for it.
how the scheduling of this exhibition and with all the
Yes,
events we've been put into the calendar for
yes,
this exhibition, and then maybe
yes,
tie that off in that way. So
yes.
the colors of these works, this body of work, seem very muddy and
It does.
layered, right? And the
Yeah.
reason for that is because they are very muddy. It's paint on top of paint on top of paint on top of paint, right? And then what he does is he takes an afro comb and then digs these grooves or scrapes these
Oh
grooves
shit.
into it.
Interesting.
As he does that, the paint underneath it comes to the fore. So depending on how deep he's digging into it, determines how much of the color underneath we'll see, right? And that relates to both the layering of culture and heritage and ancestry. Even the tools he's using become more contemporary tools because he's using an afro comb, a comb specific to the kind of hair that
Yes.
Black people have.
Yes. Nappy black hair. Yeah.
So this body of work then becomes incredibly contemporary in that sense. And again, the spirituality of it relates to what we've seen in that room right there. We
Yes.
start talking about the spirituality in the first piece and spirituality that the city holds and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's basically the show in a nutshell. It deals with the complexities of the city of Joburg.
Lovely.
I'm just going to flip the
Yeah.
camera. Sorry.
Yeah. There we go.
Oh, my ugly mug once again. So just gonna have a seat. So the idea was that we're going to deal with the city of Joburg in a variety of different ways. And that's what the show has done, right? It's dealt with the city of Joburg in a way that many people haven't seen, right? And then how to bring that idea to people and to the public was then a job for me as the curator to figure out, which is why we have a calendar of events, you know. And that calendar of events started on the 7th of this month, where we had a VIP opening to an exclusive number of guests that we invited. Like I mentioned, the former mayor of Joburg,
Yes.
you know, I then invited people who I thought would be interesting to see the show, like an architecture lecturer at UJ. You know, I invited a former collector of Asisebenze work. I invited musicians. We had a band on the night playing. You know, obviously the big head honcho who owns the space came through with his friends. You know, so that was the VIP opening that happened on Thursday night. So our first Thursdays would be like a VIP opening. And then on the Sunday was a public opening when the exhibition was open to basically everybody who wanted to come through. But together with that was a walkabout. So we had 2 walkabouts on that day. And it was basically me doing what I'm doing for you today, going through it work by work, explaining the artwork, and doing that along with Sfiso. So when Sfiso gives one explanation to it, I come to it with a different point of view, different perspective. You know, so the walkabouts on that day were twofold, right? And then after that, we had a panel discussion, which was this last Friday, right? And for that, I invited a former lecturer of mine who's at UJ, is also a practicing artist, Mark Edwards. Siso and myself sat on that panel and we talked about the effects that the city has on creatives and artists, right? Like, what does it mean for us to create in the city of Joburg? How friendly or alienating is it to create in the city? How inspiring is it to create in the city, right? We will be having a sip and paint event, which means that we'll be having small A4 to A5 canvases on easels, and very basic acrylic paints for the public to come in and paint. And that will be moderated and taught by Sfiso himself. So the public will be able to create art and engage with Sfiso as the artist in the space where the art is. Right.
Okay, man. Fantastic, Nolan. Yeah. Okay, so
I think the
so
last event we had. Sorry, mate. You're gonna say?
no, I'm saying if there's so what I'll do on the episode, I'll just add all the details about the show on the write up. So if anybody viewing that, they can just go check that. And obviously links to Asisebenze's page, and so forth.
Awesome.
Nolan, this thing, yeah. There's so many. I think there's at least 3 things, major things that I picked up while listening to that I definitely want to do a full episode on which I find relevant, which is AI, which is the marketing, and just
Okay.
how you guys are interacting with the public or bringing the public into space. I think if I must unpack them, we can do that another episode on that because there's so many interesting things that was mentioned there. Personally, I thought the show was really lovely. I love like that sculptural, the form, the shape, especially that opening piece. I like that shoulder and the shawl over the left shoulder. Really, technically, it was really, really, really strong. So thanks for that, man. And also, like, maybe this could be a future job, like your cool, calming, soothe voice, very radio friendly. Um, yeah, you sort of want to listen. And, you're talking over the person, you're talking at the person. But we all know that with Nolan Stevens. Thanks for that, Nolan. I will publish this episode next week, Friday, which will be the 20 something. It's not a long weekend like some of us thought. So if you're watching this, you still have to be in work that weekend. So, yeah, but I will definitely do that there, and I'll definitely come back to this. Also, that thing I want to talk to you privately about the whole art coach thing. Is something on my side. But my brother, thanks a lot, man. I think the space is beautiful. And I said the art is lovely. I also showed a piece of the late Samson Msisi that will also be liable to one day, to talk or to reflect like on his career, because he had an extensive career and his death was tragic. And his death also talks about or reflects like a lot of pains and stuff that artists go through, which I think is relevant. We should talk about these things. Yeah, man. And so in closing, is there any what is this social media pages, contact details, and stuff like that you want to
yeah, definitely. So on Instagram, it's Asisebenze, or you can type in Asisebenze Art Atelier. On Facebook, same thing, and the website, same thing. Right. So those are basically all our socials. Far more active in our Instagram page. Most of our Instagram just feeds into our Facebook. It's very rare that we post stuff specifically on Facebook than Instagram. So I would say if you're going to engage with our Instagram page because you'll have a lot of content.
Thanks a lot, Nolan, man.
And then our website. Awesome. I was just going to say our website is much longer form text and explanations of them. So there'll be interviews with Sfiso ahead of his exhibition that I've just spoken about, as well as longer form texts and explanations of a variety of different events that we've had at the space.
And I think let's leave it at that. Thanks again, my brother. Enjoy the rest of your morning. Well, it's technically it's afternoon now. And I'll be in touch with you privately over the next week. So till then, my brother, take care, man. And thanks a lot. The exhibition was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Cool. Thanks for the time.
Thanks. Peace. Peace, Nolan. Take care, man.
Bye.
Shot. Bye.